My mother-in-law, during the holidays, said, "If you had less money, my daughter wouldn't even look at you. You're very ugly." My wife just laughed, so I responded, "Maybe, but I have money and you only have wrinkles and debts. I won't pay for a single luxury of yours anymore." My name is Martine. I'm 34 years old, with a solid job as a manager in a tech company and a bank account that lets me live comfortably. I'm not a guy who stands out for his looks. My hair left my head before I hit 30. My belly looks like it's hiding a soccer ball, and my thick-framed glasses don't exactly make me a movie star. But I've always been cheerful, kind-hearted, and eager to make others happy. So when I met Catalina, I felt like I'd won the golden ticket. I met her in a cafe one day when I dropped my phone on the floor. She picked it up with a smile that left me speechless. "Careful, this isn't cheap," she said with a laugh that sounded like music. Tall, with long, shiny hair, green eyes that could trap anyone, and a smile that could convince you of anything. I turned red as a tomato and could only muster a thanks. We talked for a bit. She gave me her number, and I left floating, unable to believe a woman like her, who looked like she stepped out of a magazine, would notice me. From the start, I noticed Catalina liked the finer things. On our first date, she wanted to go to one of those restaurants where the menu has no prices, and you feel like you're paying off someone else's debt. I didn't mind. Seeing her happy in her tight dress with that laugh that drove me wild was worth every peso. I gave her flowers, a necklace she eyed in a store, and even paid for a week in a fancy hotel because she said she needed to unwind. I was so in love that I didn't see anything wrong. To me, it was normal to want to give everything to the woman I thought was perfect. A month later, she introduced me to her family. Her mom, Marta, and her younger sister, Lucia. Marta, about 50, looked me up and down like I was a beat-up piece of furniture in a second-hand shop. Lucia, 22, was like a younger version of Catalina, but with a diva attitude she didn't bother hiding. When I introduced myself, Marta barely shook my hand and said, "So you're Martine. Catalina told us about you." Her tone wasn't exactly warm, but I let it slide, thinking she just needed to get to know me better. It didn't take long to realize that to them, I was a walking wallet. At a dinner at their house, Marta started complaining about not being able to pay rent because everything's so expensive. Catalina, with puppy dog eyes, looked at me and said, "Honey, maybe you could help? Just this once." Smitten by her smile, I pulled out my card and paid the full month. Then Lucia casually mentioned she couldn't afford her university tuition. Guess who ended up covering it? Me, of course. Every time I helped, Marta and Lucia gave me a grudging thanks, but their looks of contempt never changed. Sometimes I overheard comments like, "He's not much, but at least he's useful." Catalina, on the other hand, would kiss me and say, "Don't mind them, honey. They're like that with everyone." And like a fool, I believed her. Months passed, and my wallet became the family's best friend. I paid for Catalina's clothes, movie outings, expensive dinners, and even a new phone for Lucia, because her old one didn't work anymore. Marta always had an emergency, a debt, a home repair, something. I kept shelling out, convinced this was how I showed my love. But deep down, something didn't add up. Whenever I tried talking to Catalina about serious things, like our future, she'd change the subject or distract me with a kiss. Marta and Lucia kept treating me like a servant who didn't deserve to be in their presence. I was so blind I couldn't see the obvious. Catalina wasn't with me for who I was, but for what I could give her. Yet I stayed trapped in the idea that a woman like her was the best thing that could happen to me. Every peso I spent was a way to cling to that dream. I didn't want to admit something was wrong. I didn't want to lose her. For months later, she started asking for a trip. "Honey, imagine us on the beach." "Son, saying just you and me?" she'd say, hugging me. I wasn't convinced. My account had already felt the weight of her needs, and a trip wasn't cheap. But Catalina insisted so much, with teary eyes and promises it'd be unforgettable, that I booked a trip to Cancun for the two of us. Then she dropped the bomb. "Honey, my mom and Lucia are dying to go. We can't leave them, right?" Before I could think it through, I'd paid for 4 plane tickets, a luxury hotel, and a week of activities for everyone. The day of the trip, I arrived at the airport with a mix of excitement and nerves. Catalina looked radiant, but Marta and Lucia barely greeted me. When we got to the hotel, everything seemed perfect. The sea was crystal blue. The hotel had a pool straight out of a movie, and I thought I could finally enjoy time with Catalina. But the first night changed everything. After a beachside dinner, we sat down for some beers. Marta, who'd had a few too many, started talking too much. She looked at me with a crooked smile and said, "You know, Martine, if you didn't have so much money, my daughter wouldn't even glance at you. You're very ugly." My stomach knotted like I'd been punched. I looked at Catalina, expecting her to say something to defend me, to put her mom in her place. But no, she, sober as could be, burst out laughing. "Oh, Mom, don't be like that," she said, but her laugh had no support in it. It was like she agreed. Lucia didn't even look up from her phone, but smirked. A heat rose in my chest. All those months, all those expenses, all the times I ignored their disdain crashed down on me. It wasn't just Marta's comment. It was everything. The way they treated me like a walking ATM. The way Catalina never defended me, just used me. For the first time, I saw clearly, and I was done. I looked at Marta, still with her mocking smile, and said, "Maybe, but I have money, and you only have wrinkles and debts. I won't pay for your whims anymore." I stood up from the table, my heart pounding. Catalina tried to stop me, saying, "Honey, don't take it like that. It's just a joke." But I didn't want to hear it. I went to my room and started packing, my head spinning. All the signs I'd ignored hit me at once. Catalina came in behind me, looking worried. "Martine, please don't do this." My mom didn't mean it. She was drunk, but her words felt empty. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel that blind love that had kept me trapped. "Catalina, no more," I said firmly. I zipped up my suitcase, grabbed my things, and left the room without looking back. Leaving that room in Cancun, suitcase in hand and heart racing, felt like shedding a weight. Catalina's voice, begging me to stay, faded as I walked down the hotel hallway. "Martine, please don't do this," she said, but her words sounded fake, like she was rehearsing for a cheap play. I didn't look back. If I did, I might waver, and I wasn't going to keep being the fool who paid for their whims. In the lobby, I stopped to think. My head was a mess. I'd paid for the hotel, the tickets, the activities, everything. And there I was, about to leave, letting Catalina, Marta, and Lucia enjoy a week of luxury they didn't deserve. I wanted to go back and yell until I lost my voice, but I held back. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Instead, I made a decision that put me back in control. I was cutting off their money for good. I went to the front desk and asked to speak with the manager. I told him I wanted to cancel the rest of the reservation. The man, who looked like he'd seen 1,000 dramas, said seriously, "Sir, if you cancel now, there's no refund, and the guests will have to leave tomorrow." I smiled to myself. "Do it," I said without hesitation. Then I pulled out my phone and called the airline. In minutes, I canceled Catalina, Marta, and Lucia's return tickets. I kept mine intact. I wasn't spending another peso on them. While waiting for a taxi to the airport, I felt a pang of doubt. What if I was being too harsh? What if Catalina loved me but didn't know how to handle her family? But then I remembered her laugh after Marta's comment. It wasn't just her mom's mockery. It was that she never defended me. Never. Every time Marta or Lucia treated me like garbage, she'd just kiss me and change the subject. That laugh on the beach was the push I needed to open my eyes. It wasn't love, it was convenience. And I was done with that. The flight back was calm. I sat by the window, watching the clouds, replaying everything. The months with Catalina, the gifts, the dinners, her family's emergencies. How had I been so blind? It wasn't just the money, it was how small they made me feel. Marta with her cruel comments, Lucia with her blatant contempt, and Catalina always manipulating me with a smile. But no more. When the plane landed, I felt like I was leaving behind a version of myself I never wanted to see again. I got to my apartment near midnight. The first thing I did was call a locksmith. I knew Catalina had a copy of my key, and I wasn't risking her showing up with her mom and sister, crying or inventing some crisis. The locksmith, A man of few words. Changed the locks in under an hour. When he left, I collapsed on the couch and looked around my house. My space, my life. For the first time in months, I felt it was mine again. The next day, my phone started blowing up. Messages from Catalina. First soft. Honey, please, let's talk. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then more desperate. Martine, we have no way to get back. The hotel kicked us out. Help us. Marta left a voicemail in her arrogant tone. You're an ungrateful jerk after everything we did for you. I let out a bitter laugh. What they did for me. Bleed me dry? I blocked their numbers and went on with my day. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, I was watching a show in my living room when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. There they were, Catalina, Marta, and Lucia, standing at my door. Catalina's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Marta had her arms crossed, looking at me like I was the villain. Lucia, as always, was glued to her phone, looking bored. I opened the door, but didn't let them in. What do you want? I asked coldly. Catalina stepped forward with that victim face that used to soften me. Martine, please let us in. We have nowhere to go. The trip was a mistake. My mom didn't mean it. Marta huffed behind her. Yeah, Martine, don't be dramatic. It was a joke, and you left us stranded. Lucia, without looking up, muttered, What a drag. Just let us in. I stared at them, incredulous. They really thought they could show up, and I'd cave. I'm done, I said, raising my voice. For months, I was your bank. I paid your rent, Marta, and your tuition. Lucia, don't act like I didn't. And you, Catalina, never defended me. You laughed when your mom called me ugly and said I'm only with you for money. And now you're here asking for more? No, it's over. Catalina tried to speak, tears streaming down her face, looking rehearsed. Martine, it's not true. I love you, I swear. I cut her off. If you love me, you wouldn't have let them walk all over me. Find someone else to pay for everything, because I'm done. I slammed the door in their faces and locked it. I heard them yelling. Marta banged on the door, shouting, You'll regret this, Martine. Catalina cried, calling my name. Lucia complained about wasting her time. After a few minutes, they left. The silence was a relief, but they weren't done. The next day, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Marta. Martine, don't be stupid. We can fix this. Come see me and we'll talk. She attached a photo of herself at a cafe with a smile that gave me chills. I didn't respond, but something told me they wouldn't give up easily. And I was right. That night, while I was sleeping, I heard a noise in the living room. I got up, heart racing, and grabbed a baseball bat from my closet. I turned on the light and saw the window slightly open. Someone had tried to break in. I ran to check and found a bag on the floor with some of my stuff, a pricey watch, my old laptop, even a pair of headphones. I froze. This wasn't a random thief. It had to be Marta. She knew where I kept my valuables because months ago she'd been in my apartment and asked out of curiosity where I stored them. I called the police and reported the attempted robbery, explaining everything. The trip, the fights, Marta, and the girl's visit. The officer, a serious guy, took notes and said they'd patrol my street for a few days. He also recommended changing the window and installing an alarm. I did both the next day, spending more than I wanted, but it was worth it for peace of mind. A few days later, Catalina tried again. She sent a long email full of excuses, saying she was sorry, that her mom was out of control, that she really loved me. But at the end, as always, she asked for money to get out of the jam. This time, she mentioned they were in a cheap motel and couldn't pay rent. I didn't reply. I marked the email as spam and deleted it. But it didn't end there. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I saw Lucia waiting for me at the corner. She was alone, wearing a dress that screamed, Look at me! I approached on guard. Martine, we need to talk, she said with a smile that didn't fool me. My mom messed up, and Catalina's a wreck. We just want to fix things. She tried to touch my arm, but I pulled away. Lucia, I'm not interested. Leave me alone. She switched tactics. Fine. If you don't want to talk, at least help us with some cash. We're on the street because of you. I let out a dry laugh. Because of me? I didn't force you to treat me like garbage. Find someone else. I turned and walked away, but heard her yell, "You'll regret this, Martine." Her voice had the same venom as her mom's. I got in my car and drove home with a knot in my stomach. These women wouldn't quit. That night, I checked my bank account. The numbers didn't lie. Thousands of pesos spent on them. Catalina's clothes, dinners, Lucia's phone, Marta's rent, the tuition, the trip. I wasn't broke, but my account was thinner than I liked. I promised myself I'd never let anyone use me again. It was an expensive lesson, but one I wouldn't forget. One morning, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Catalina using someone else's phone. "Martine, please, just listen. I'm alone. My mom and Lucia went too far. I don't want to be like them. Give me a chance." Her tone seemed sincere, almost desperate. For a second, I hesitated, remembering her laughs, her hugs, how she made me feel special. But then I thought of her laugh on the beach, how she never defended me, how there was always a catch behind her "I love yous." I blocked the number and deleted the message. I wasn't falling for it again. Things got worse. A week later, I was leaving work when I saw Marta in the parking lot. She was alone, holding a bag, with a smile that gave me a bad feeling. I approached cautiously, keeping my distance. "Martine, good to see you," she said, like she hadn't tried to rob me. "Can we talk?" This got out of hand. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes had that cold glint I now recognized. "There's nothing to talk about," I said curtly. "Leave me alone or I'll call the police." I tried to pass, but she stepped in front of me. "Don't be like that. Look, I brought you something to apologize." She pulled out a small, wrapped gift box. I didn't move. Something screamed it was a trap. "I don't want anything from you, Marta. Get out of here." Her smile twisted. "You're an idiot. You could have my daughter, an easy life, but you're too proud. You'll regret this." I didn't let her continue. I pulled out my phone, dialed the police, and put it on speaker. "I want to report harassment," I said, staring at her. Marta paled, stepped back, and hurried off, leaving the box on the ground. I didn't touch it. I called building security and asked them to check it. It was an empty box with a note. "Come back or you'll pay." I filed a police report that night, and they said they'd issue a restraining order against Marta. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. I changed my phone number and shut down my social media. I didn't want them tracking me. I also talked to my boss and asked to work from home for a few days, just in case. I wasn't paranoid, but after everything, I prefer to be cautious. One afternoon, while having a soda at home, I got a message from Juan, my best friend. "You gotta see this," he said, laughing. He sent me a video going around online. It was from a mall. Catalina, Marta, and Lucia were screaming at a man in a clothing store. The guy, a 40-something in a tight shirt and gold chain, was yelling that he wasn't paying for anything else. Marta threw a bag at him. Lucia shouted something crude, and Catalina looked like she wanted to sink into floor. People recorded, laughing, as they were escorted out. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my soda. It was like looking in a mirror, but with another poor sap in my place. Juan, still on the call, said, "You escaped a cheap soap opera." And he was right. Seeing them make fools of themselves with someone else felt like closing a door. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just a deep calm. Days passed, and I started feeling freer. The anger faded, and the pain turned into a lesson. I checked my bank account, and though it hurt to see how much I'd spent on them, I knew I could recover. I planned a solo trip to a quiet place to clear my head. The idea excited me more than any outing with Catalina. One night, I went to a bar with Juan. We were laughing, swapping stories, when I saw something that froze me. At a table in the back were Catalina, Marta, and Lucia with a new guy. He was older, clearly trying to impress, and obviously smitten. Catalina was giving him doe eyes. Marta was smiling like he was a king, and Lucia true to form, was on her phone. I stared and Catalina saw me. Her face changed like she'd been caught. She tried to stand, but I looked away and kept talking with Juan. I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, just pity for guy falling into their trap. Juan noticed my silence, followed my gaze, and said, "Forget the man. That poor guy doesn't know what's coming." I nodded, and we toasted to my new freedom. As I sipped my beer, I thought about everything that had happened. I'd lost money, time, and a piece of my confidence, but I'd gained something bigger, clarity. I knew who I was, what I was worth, and that I'd never let anyone use me again. When I left the bar, the cool air hit my face. I walked home with a smile I couldn't wipe off. Catalina, Marta, and Lucia could keep playing their games, but I was no longer part of their circus. And that, more than anything, made me feel alive. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and subscribe for more daily stories.